Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe. Share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. I guess, look, first place to start, and it's not going to take us huge amount of time, is Inoue against Yi Jung Kim. I mean, look, I think we all knew it was going to end in a knockout. The only disparity was going to be when that took place. Now, I predicted somewhere between 6 and 7 rounds, purely because, look, it's a last minute opponent. It's a guy that's actually, he's quite big and stocky for the weight class. And obviously, I thought maybe Inoue might need to, adjust to certain things within the fight of Southpaw as well, a little bit different. So I thought, yeah, first few rounds, you'll sort of just take that opportunity, just, kind of work things out, go through the motions a little bit. And, I wasn't sure if Kim was durable or not. Now, to be fair, I can't say how durable he was, but he did chip some shots early and, stood up to them. He also did have a bit of a warrior spirit, to the sense that he took some shots and then he beckoned Inoue on. All right, come, let's go, let's keep doing this. But in that last moment, it looked a bit funny where he's almost like he's beckoned him on, then gets hit with the flash jab, followed up by the powerful straight right hand, which sends him down to the canvas. So it's almost like he's beckoning Inoue on to deliver that kill blow. It's like, all right, I know I can't win this, so here's your moment, take it. I haven't actually been able to see anything from the undercard, to be totally honest, apart from Jin Sasaki, who is obviously still maybe not prospect, but he's like I guess fringe contender at this point, maybe coming up to a contender of sorts. There was no fights on the card that you would deem 50-50s or majorly competitives. I think some were still just more about learning and trying to work through certain things, etc. So with that kind of being said, I there was nothing else really to take from it. Now, Inoue and Bob Arum were in the ring. Bob Arum did say that he is looking to get Inoue into Las Vegas around springtime, so that's probably April/May. The general consensus is that it will be Alan Picasso as his next fight, which will therefore mean that he ends up having to vacate his WBA super bantamweight title, which will mean that MJ Akhmadaliev will now be elevated to the full champion of the WBA. But Inoue has also said that he is looking to fight in Riyadh later on this year, as a part of his new ambassadorial role with Turki Al-Sheikh. So there is an idea that you could potentially then get the undisputed fight again, for all of the belts sometime in Riyadh season. I would assume it would likely be on that October card, so the opening card, where Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia are supposedly slated to meet each other should they get through their bouts at the start of May, which wouldn't actually be that bad going. It would actually be a decent shout. But with Turki Al-Sheikh also saying that he wants to see Inoue versus Nick Bull, there is a chance he may ask Inoue to step up to 126 pounds to take on Nick Bull. Inoue has also said that he is also considering a New Year's Day fight, which is normally Japanese tradition. So there is potential that he could fight 4 times this year, which again is insane work rate for someone of his level, his standing, and his market value. So that is commendable, but obviously that's not agreed at this point in time. And it would also depend on, how he deals with these other fights. If he has, 2 tough fights before then, he won't be ready to fight New Year's. So it would just be the 3. But look, I can't criticize anything that he's doing apart from maybe, choosing not to satisfy the mandatory with arguably the best other contender at 122 at this point. You've beaten Picasso. Sam Goodman at this point now doesn't deserve an opportunity to fight you after, pulling out of the fight twice with an injury, plus delaying the fight 2 times prior to that in the year over, one towards the back end of 2023 and then also once in 2024. So yeah, I don't really think that's an option. So, Alan Picasso is not probably ready for that world level stint just yet. So really and truly, MJ is the only viable option there. But to move up to another weight class, I've got my own issues about that, but that's something that if it does get addressed, I'll speak about later on. Specifically, if we get into it later on today on Fight Talk Live, I will definitely have certain things to say regarding that potential opportunity. Now, with that being said, so that was Friday, Friday morning UK time. What was it, like 11 a.m. in the morning? So we're probably looking 6 a.m. East Coast and 3 a.m. West Coast. We go on to Saturday and we had the Dalton Smith versus Waleed Khwiza fight. And look, the fight card itself, they had a couple of before the bell bouts, which were, well, you would say standard fare if it wasn't for Trey Dewberry nearly basically snatching defeat from the jaws of victory right under the last 6-7 seconds of the fight. Pretty much was in total control of the entire fight from round 1 all the way up to the end of round 6, where just inexplicably he eats a sweeping left hook from out of nowhere, which just basically takes him down right into the ropes about 5 seconds before the bell's about to go. And as he gets up walking towards the referee, he is all over the place, wobbly, he had no legs underneath him. If it wasn't for the fact that the bell rang as he actually got up to his feet, had the referee, he did his standing 8 count, had the ref had even 10 seconds left on the clock, he would have waved the fight off, because at that point he was in no condition to carry on. And I've tweeted that he is the luckiest prospect ever. Obviously, sometimes you see prospects get beat, or sometimes you'll see prospects get given dodgy decisions and favorable decisions, but you never see something like that where you've been in command of the entire fight against someone who is nowhere near the level, and then literally right in the last seconds, boom, you're basically out on your feet on the canvas, and just being saved by the bell. The only thing that I can actually think of that is even similar to that in terms of what a monumental upset it could have been was when Daniel Dubois got knocked down by Kevin Lerena, and he went down for the 3rd time in the first round of their fight, and as he was getting back to his feet, the bell went 10 seconds early, which basically meant that as he got up, the referee can't technically wave the fight off because the bell's gone, which also means it doesn't have to adhere to the 3 knockdown rule because the bell for the round is gone. That's the only thing I've got in comparison, but that was on at least like a contendership level. So Dewberry's he's got to tighten that up. It's funny, I was looking at him in the ring and just the way he moves, and very sort of muscle bound, stiff robotic type movements. I'm not saying Anthony Joshua is stiff and robotic. I know other people have given him that criticism, but I actually don't believe that. But Dewberry does remind me very much of like a much smaller version of Anthony Joshua. So that was quite telling, just in how everything sort of transpired and worked out. But outside of that, you had Hamza Udin, another victory for him, but it does look as if the power that people believed he had isn't actually there now that he's fighting people at his actual weight class, as opposed to people being brought up from like 2 weight classes down in his pro debut. I mean, he's got good, good fundamentals, good reflexes, good slick skills on the inside and everything, but time will tell how that develops and goes through. In terms of the rest of the card, there wasn't a huge amount for me to really look at. I mean, look, Ibrahim Suleiman did what he needed to do in his fight against Fernando Arce. Standard points victory. Ellie Scotney against Miyamoto, she went in, had a bit of slugfest through times of that fight where she could have stayed more on the outside. hit a 1-2, and then, you know, sort of moved off, angled out to the side, which is kind of how I thought that she would play the bout. I did predict that she will eventually get herself dragged into a couple of exchanges, and that will be where Motu gets her success. I think I predicted that it would be sort of like a 97-93 type fight, 98-92, but Ellie would sort of come through it. And then the scorecards, I do believe, were 99-91 all three times, I believe, which I feel is a little bit harsh. I do feel as if, Miyamoto got at least 2 rounds in there. There is an argument that she maybe could have got 3. She had her most success at the moments when Ellie just tried to make it a bit of a dogfight and trade on the inside. But look, it was a decent enough fight, and I'm pretty sure that Motu will come back and be an opponent for someone else at 122 pounds. And at a point where Ellie Scotney moves up and maybe vacates belts, there is an opportunity that she maybe could be a winner and actually pick up a title. So it was decent enough. Conor Walker and Harry Scarf. Now, this fight played out nothing like how I thought it would initially. I predicted Conor Walker would win. I can't even remember how I did it on Basis Picks. In my I know in my predictions league, I predicted it would be a unanimous decision to Conor Walker. My thoughts being, even though Scarf is obviously longer and rangier, Conor Walker's very good at being able to find his way onto the inside, work away, and just maybe grind people down. And I thought Scarf might, have some success early, then just start to sort of get worn down a bit later on. Now, that did kind of happen, but just not to the way that we believed. Yes, those first few rounds were nothing but Harry Scarf just keeping Conor at the end of those jabs, those straight right hands, even the hooks, but fighting predominantly from the southpaw stance as well, which isn't his normal bread and butter, but that was causing Conor Walker all kinds of problems, especially with the height and the reach disparity, which Harry Scarf is quite good at using. But I always felt that the fact that he's only got 3 KOs in his, I think it's 16 fights that he had, or 17 fights prior to this, it was always gonna be a problem trying to keep Conor Walker off of him. He's got a head that's made of rock. He's a very tough, durable guy, and that he's gonna just get on the inside at some point. Now, the fight was in the up until sort of the 11th, I think the fight was like 9-1, maybe 10-0 to Harry Scarf. It looked that pretty much that one-sided, but there was a little bit, the slight chipping away, just the fact that, Conor Walker, just constant aggression, constant pressure. You don't really get the chance to breathe that much. So you knew that the Scarf was being kicked into overgear. And from about around 5-6 onwards, you could see that he was starting to look a little bit leggy, like, oh, okay, this is long, having to keep doing this. I'm winning these rounds, but it's taking its toll. And then lo and behold, like in the 11th round, just one dip of the knees, one counter right hook, bang, straight on the jaw, and Harry Scarf ends up, his legs get frozen, starts wobbling back. Conor Walker runs in, flurry, Scarf is down on the ground. He gets up, Conor Walker comes barreling straight back in, punches in bunches, throwing salvos. Now, Harry Scarf is actually trying to exchange at points. He is lucid, he's trying to come in, he's trying to clinch, he's trying to hold, but he's not. He's lucid and he's trying to roll some stuff, but I guess the referee didn't feel like he was protecting himself enough, and there wasn't enough coming back, especially with like a minute or something left to go in the round, and the referee decides to wave it off. Now, I don't often agree with Tony Bellew, but I can see his argument to say that the guy is 9-1 up on the scorecards. It's for his belts. He's the champion, and it's not like he's on the ropes just being teed off on with his hands down, taking everything. He is slipping some stuff. He is riding some stuff. He's getting caught with some stuff. He's trying to exchange. Bellew said, look, he was definitely going to get knocked out, but at least allow him to get knocked out as the champion in that moment. I see where he's going, and I partially agree. I can see both sides. Like I didn't have a major issue with the fight being stopped the way it was stopped because of how long was left in the round and the fact that he wasn't, throwing back copious amounts of response to what was happening to him. But I can also see the other side of, look, he is the champion and he is still fairly lucid in the ring. He kind of does know what's going on. Give him that opportunity to properly lose his belts. So I see both sides, but ultimately, I predicted that Conor Walker would win. He left it majorly late to do so, but he did make my prediction right, even though I predicted it would be a points decision as opposed to a TKO. But the TKO did make it a bit sweeter, so shout out and congratulations to him. Well deserved. He's done things the hard way. He's taken fights which maybe a lot of other guys wouldn't have taken in his position, or even in positions worse than his. But he took him. He believed in himself. He's been unfairly judged on a couple, but he's caused upsets on the others. So congratulations. In terms of Dalton Smith versus Waleed Khwiza, I said I thought he would win 4 rounds, 5 rounds. I thought he'd just get back into the groove, and Khwiza, I said he doesn't do anything spectacular, but fundamentally he's okay. Like he doesn't really do anything that badly either. He was just not at the races. He wasn't really worth being in the ring. I don't know why the John Fernandez fight didn't get rescheduled. I don't know if he was injured as well, if he had other commitments, if we were going to hear something else about John Fernandez. But either way, look, it was for the vacant EBU title. I did see Adam Azim was tweeting that day saying, is this for an EBU title? Like, what am I watching? I mean, yes, you in isolation, you can clown that and say, oh, you guys have basically just gift wrapped this guy the title. But, then when context is brought into it, ultimately you did swerve that fight and give up the belt rather than take the mandatory shot that you were told to take along with the British as well. And also, Enoch Paulson, coming off of over 2 years inactive, multiple injuries. So it wasn't like you were, put in there with the hardest of hardest tasks to fight for the EBU as well. It just, what they say, like people in glass houses and all that stuff. But, it is what it is. They've got their little rivalry going on, so it makes sense. Moving over to the stuff that took place on the US side of Matchroom. I think it was in Vegas in the Cosmopolitan. Now, Zaquin Moses had he had a 1-round victory. Basically, the opponent pulled out on the stool at the end of the fight due to a bicep injury. So I think he tore his bicep some point in that round. He went out. We had Nishant Dev, so Matchroom's new Indian, 154-pound Olympian. He had a very good knockout victory, first round KO as well. Very good, very clean. I then didn't actually see much of the main card. I was actually watching Saturday night's main event alongside both, and then I ended up falling asleep until the last parts of, I think, the chief support fight, which is obviously Andy Cruz versus Omar Salcedo, and I think I only saw that one from maybe the 5th round on. It looked fairly comfortable for Andy Cruz for the most part. Did take a couple shots, but he wanted to be in the pocket for some parts and trade along with Omar Salcedo. But Salcedo's also he's got like over 20 fights himself. This was Andy Cruz's 5th fight. I even put onto X, as you guys know, I'll call it that. Okay, for maybe just get him some activity for the next 6-7 months, 2-3. I'm not going to say easy fights, but just fights where he can actually get either some highlight reel knockouts, or he can just get some stoppages to boost up the KO ratio on his on his box rec and just on his file. Because at the minute he's 5-0 with 2 KO. So for people with basic maths, that's a 40% KO ratio. If it carries on where you don't really see the stoppages, a lot of the casual people are going to look at that and say, oh well, why would I want to watch this guy? It looks like he hasn't really got no power, so these fights are going to be boring. Now, his fights aren't actually boring. They're always quite entertaining for the most part, but it's just a case of you at least want, if you see that on there and you don't know the guy, you think, oh, okay, he's got some hands. This might, this might be worth watching, and then it's someone, then you finally see him fight. Oh, okay, I like what I'm seeing here, and then you start getting invested. So I said, look, no more tough Mexicans for now, because he's had about five fights against a Mexican opposition. I believe there was all Mexicans so far. He stopped two of them. He almost stopped Salcedo in the 10th round. Had it have been either a minute left in the round or maybe two more rounds in the fight, he probably would have got the stoppage. But let him fight someone else now. Let him fight a couple other nationalities that maybe aren't as tough, and then especially in that 135 category, there's a lot of non-Mexican entrances in there. You can find all different types of nationalities that you can put him in there with. So yeah, that's what I would say for him. And then towards the autumn time, you put him in a final eliminator for the WBA. Put him on a collision course with Tank Davis to see what happens there. Or you could put him on a collision course with Keyshawn Davis if he's going to be going for that WBO, which is the next fight. That's his next fight against Berinchek. Those would be the two, sort of the two best options. Obviously, you got the WBC in play with Shakur Stevenson, but William Zepeda is currently the mandatory for that. Whenever he decides to take that opportunity, we never know. So Andy Cruz won't get an opportunity there. But then you also got the IBF, I suppose. And that could be a potential route. I don't even, which is obviously Vasyl Lomachenko. He's currently on medical suspension, medical leave until there's back issues come to light. So we'll find out what happens there. Maybe towards the end of the year, if Lomachenko, keeps the belt that long, maybe you could see Lomachenko versus Andy Cruz for the title. And it wouldn't be out of place because Lomachenko did fight for a title in his second professional fight. So why not Andy Cruz fight for one in his 6th, 7th or 8th, depending on how many fights he takes this year. So yeah, so that's sort of my thoughts there. In terms of the main event, I think you guys know I picked Steven Nelson to win. I thought that he may get I thought he would it would be a competitive fight with Pacheco possibly being up on the cards until sort of around about the 8th or the 9th, and then Nelson would maybe, a lot of the invested early work would start to pay off, and he might just basically just break Pacheco down and use that grit, determination, that experience to stop him late. And I thought he would get sort of a late stoppage decision. But that was all predicated on me thinking that he was going to do a lot more to kind of be on the inside, to stay inside the reach of Diego Pacheco. Like they say, you've either got to be all the way out or you've got to be all the way in terms of range. You can't be in that mid-range where obviously he's the taller, the rangier, the longer guy who wants to be able to throw the straight punches or the punches where he can get maximum leverage into the shots. So the first 4 rounds, I think that Steven Nelson was doing very, very well in terms of keeping a constant distance, switching things up. Sometimes, playing the outside, sort of jumping in, using the double jab right hand combination, throwing to the body. He was hitting arms a bit as well, but it looked like he was just being the busier, pushing Pacheco about. Pacheco was just taking his time and obviously just trying to understand the patterns. But there wasn't enough of Nelson getting on the inside in those early rounds. So even though I gave him 3 of the first 4 rounds just based on the activity, the aggression and the output that I believed, I could also see there was a couple times, especially towards the ends of the rounds, where Pacheco was actually catching him clean with 1 or 2 really good eye-catching shots. And based on what I've seen of the scorecards, I can imagine those eye-catching shots is what a lot of the judges were remembering, hence why they were giving Pacheco a lot of those earlier rounds. But from round 4 onwards, when I think it was in the end of the 3rd, or it was the start of the 4th, where Steven Nelson got cut over his left eye, and at that point things seemed to have changed. Even though he seemed quite happy to sort of carry on, I feel like he was now in a bit of either discomfort or he was a bit worried about, okay, if I go too much, I know that cut was caused by a punch. If it opens up or it starts to get worse, then chances are I may not be able to finish this fight. So I've got to be a bit smarter and try and take my opportunities where I get them. But in those points now, he was staying way too much on the outside, not doing enough. He's not quick enough to be able to close the distance like consistently. So being all the way out, it was just giving Pacheco opportunities just to find those shots, those, you know, those jabs, those backhands, even some, you know, sneaky uppercuts as well. You know, Nelson was competitive in the rounds, but he just was at this point, you know, Pacheco was just stamping his authority round after round after round. And then when you got to sort of the ninth and the 10th, you're just like, yeah, this is looking troublesome, especially at this point. Nelson is eating some big hellacious shots that Pacheco was knocked other guys clean out with. Nelson's eating them and not even reacting. There's not even a wobble or a drop or a shot back, or, you know, a slight stiffening of the legs. Like whatever he's got in his chin, I think is what other boxers are desiring. Like him, Golovkin, Canelo, they've definitely got those elite level chins. Part of that maybe from the army background, maybe he's just got that mental toughness, that, you know, that training to be able to absorb punishment and keep pushing forward. The conditioning, obviously Bomac and Terence Crawford in the ring, you can tell that clearly he is a very well conditioned guy, because he never looked out on his feet at any point. He never looked like he was breathing super heavy. It was like maybe take one big deep breath and then he's back in the fight. But yeah, it looked like a long night from the 10th, and I thought, oh, from that point the stoppage might actually happen the other way. It didn't. In the 11th round, I don't know what inspiration or what war memories he thought of, but he came out mad aggressive. Not He got on the inside, he stayed on the inside, he caught Pacheco with a couple of sweeping left hooks over the top. He worked to the body. He pushed him back. He used his physical strength to get Pacheco closer to the ropes and started working away. And Pacheco, you could tell, was very uncomfortable with that in the 11th round. And it was a clear comeback round for for Steven Nelson. And you thought, oh, maybe this, he's trying to take the young man into those deep waters. In the 12th round, same thing again. Now the 12th is a little bit closer than the 11th, but I still feel like he won that 12th round quite convincingly. But again, he's doing similar things. Pacheco does not look comfortable. And then the first thing you're thinking, especially me, I'm like, if you did this three rounds earlier, 2 rounds earlier than what you did, you may have had a chance to actually win this fight, either on the cards, or you could have got that stoppage, because this was the fight I was expecting to see. You on the inside, not allowing him to use his range and his reach to get that maximum impact on the shots. So he just did it way too late. Ultimately, all of the scorecards came in at 117, 111. Now, I did think those were a little too wide. And it looks like a lot of people online agreed with me. A lot of people said they had it 115, 113 to Pacheco. I saw one or two people that said 116, 112. And then I saw Dan Raphael, who said it was, he believed it to be, he said it was an 8-4-9-3 type fight for him. So either or. I could see 116, 112. I could see that if you have 2 rounds apiece in the first 4 and then the last 2 rounds to Nelson, I haven't got a problem with that. But yeah, I think to only give him 3 rounds, and then looking at the judges' scorecards, only one judge gave him the 12th. As 2 of them gave the 12th to Pacheco, which I didn't think was correct. I think all 3 judges gave him the first round. And I think one judge gave him the third. No, one judge gave him the 3rd, and the other judge gave him the 4th. So yeah, but then the judge that gave him one of the judges that just gave him the first round also gave him the 11th and the 12th. So yeah, and then one gave him the 1st, the 3rd, and the 11th, and then the other one gave him the 1st, the 4th, and the 11th. So I mean, look, it was a very competitive. It was a good enough fight. He just didn't turn it on early enough. But shout out to Pacheco. Obviously, he started off slow, got into his groove, worked the body well. He found that he worked a couple of decent body shots. He should have created a bit more openings to try and actually exploit the body, to see if that was the way to break him down. But he landed enough clean headshots to the point where he probably thought, all I've got to do is just catch the right one. But as I said, whatever Steven Nelson's beard is made out of, I think other fighters are going to be asking him to borrow it in future, because like I said, he took some shit and he carried on and stayed through it. But yeah, look, Diego Pacheco moves on. He's number one in several, I think several rankings at the moment, but he still needs a little bit of work prior to a potential Canelo fight, which chances are will never happen. But yeah, look, they're looking at possibly Mbile, maybe after the Lily Sajo fight, whenever that one takes place. There was talks of Edgar Berlanga. I think that's the fight for him personally. There's other fights that you could make at this point. You obviously you can't do the Mongia fight right now because he's got that Saras, that's Saras work to sort of rectify it and deal with. But yeah, there's fights that he can have in that interim. Maybe if Jamal Charlo goes up there, that's an opportunity. If he ever gets sort of back in there, and yeah, you just get that experience, one or two more fights, and then take the world title shot if the mandatory is called. I think that makes perfect sense. But yeah, for right now, look, I'm going to leave it there. That was sort of like just the weekend itself wrapped up. There's a few other bits and pieces which I'll be addressing either later on this week or possibly as well as our Fight Talk Live later on today, which will likely take place sometime between 9 and 10, between 9 maybe 9:30 later on. So make sure jump over to the Fight Talk Live channel and you guys can see that. But yeah, I'll leave it there for right now. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I'll catch you on the next one. But until then, peace.